Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Aerospace Cookies. It's me again, the second favorite daughter, joined by my dad and world-renowned rocket scientist, Mark. World-renowned. I've been multiple places in the world, and I thought you were cool in all of those places. So it counts.
I guess from your perspective, I am world-renowned.
Yes. Today.
Yeah, but what about when you were in Nepal? I wasn't world-renowned then.
But I still thought you were cool.
But I wasn't there with you, though.
But I still thought you were cool. You don't have to be in... Who knows what world-renowned
we're
means?
Off
it
topic.
Means whatever I say it means. Today we are talking about a short story called The Machine Stops by...
I don't remember. But what's more significant than who wrote it is when they wrote it. I want to say 1908.
The Machine Stops was written by E.M. Forster in 1909.
I was close.
Mm-hmm.
I was only a year off. So yeah, this story is more than 120 years old.
Which is really cool.
Well, almost 120 years old.
So I read this story because you recommended it, and I actually have no idea how you came across it.
It was a short story we read in one of my English classes all the way back in high school.
Oh, okay.
And when I read it, I did not realize how old it was, which it is extraordinarily prescient. And I introduced it to you and your siblings and to my wife because at the time we were in the middle of COVID. And we didn't live in the United States. A lot of people complained about lockdowns in the United States. But we lived at that time in Jordan in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And really they're not a democracy. People say, "Oh, America's democracy is in danger. Go live overseas."
Yeah. I'm not saying America's perfect, but go somewhere else for a minute and realize what you got.
But I think the king made the right decision, which was basically to lock everybody in their homes. Period. Full stop.
Like if we left the apartment, we'd get arrested. Mm-hmm. It was really strict.
And a lot of people, after about 2 weeks, were getting arrested because they'd run out of cigarettes. So, just a little public service announcement. Don't smoke, okay? Because you'll get arrested in the Kingdom of Jordan because you won't be able to get your cigarettes during lockdown.
Yeah, that's the only reason not to smoke.
But yeah, so, and I said I believe the king made the right decision, and the reason why, medical care in Amman or in Jordan, Amman is the capital city, was very, very, very good, but there was only a teeny bit of it. So if the COVID had run rampant in Jordan, a lot of people would have died because they just would not have had the medical infrastructure to deal with it. So they kept people locked up, and they'd bring bread trucks around and deliver bread to people to have something to survive on. So that was the environment that we were living in during COVID.
Yeah, and it was not fun. My school went completely online, and suddenly I could never see my friends because it was illegal for me to see my friends. And reading The Machine Stops, there are a lot of things I relate to because I'll explain the premise of The Machine Stops. So The Machine Stops is a story about the world after some vague apocalypse has happened when all of humanity is managed by a machine. Everyone is in their own little room from this room.
Underground. Important to mention.
Underground.
Everything is underground. Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me of the TV show Silo.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Ileana should do an episode with you
We're watching it with filters because it's a little rough. But please, go on. Yes. So everybody's living underground and a machine is managing everything.
Yes, so it automates everything and people rarely see each other in person. They just contact each other over voice calls. And one of the things I thought was interesting...
Video phones.
Yes. We primarily focus... in this story on a woman.
Can I make a little segue on video phones? So growing up, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, And of course, there's always the talk about someday we'll have video phones. You call someone on the phone, and you'll be able to see them on the phone. And this is my plug for why monopolies don't work. Because Ma Bell, and Bell Telephone got broken up into several smaller companies because they were a monopoly, but they could never get video phones to work. The technology, they just couldn't solve the technological problem. And of course, the day after the internet was invented, we had video phones. And so that's my plug for monopolies really hampering innovation, because Ma Bell already had all the infrastructure, had all the money they needed, and they couldn't pull it off. The internet comes along, boom, we've got it.
So in this story, we focus on a character, Vashti, and her relationship with her son, which we'll get into that a little bit more later. But at the beginning of the story, she contacts her, she FaceTimes her son, but obviously they didn't have that phrase yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things they talk
It's
about...
not Zoom, it's FaceTime?
It's whatever you want it to be.
Just so long as it isn't that Teams.
Yes.
Ooh.
So with this technology, though, she is able to see a projection of her son. So it's not just audio, it is visual. But one of the things they say is, so they're talking, and then it says, he broke off and she fancied that he looked sad. She could not be sure, for the machine did not transmit the nuances of expression. It only gave a general idea of people, an idea that was good enough for all practical purposes, Vashti thought.
Too much compression, huh?
I guess so. But the imponderable bloom declared by a discredited philosophy to be the actual essence of intercourse. That's a line where you can tell this was not written recently.
Right, because in this context, intercourse meant conversation.
Yes, yes, yes. But so the imponderable bloom declared to be a discredited philosophy to the actual essence of intercourse was rightly ignored by the machine, just as the imponderable bloom of the grape was ignored by the manufacturers of artificial fruit. Something good enough had long since been accepted by our race. So there are a couple points I want to make about this. First off, it's incredible the things this author did correctly predict about how technology would progress, but it's also interesting what he got wrong. Because if you Zoom or FaceTime with someone, unless the Wi-Fi is really bad, you can get a perfectly clear image of their face. If you're watching a movie in IMAX, you do see every nuance of the actor's expression. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he did get the idea right that talking with someone over a video just is not the same as talking with someone face to face.
Yeah, because you do lose a lot of communication, because you only get the words and you get the face and inflections and stuff like that. But being in someone's presence, really, there's a lot more connection there, a lot better intercourse.
And that was something that I really struggled with during COVID. I'd call my friends and we'd FaceTime, but it was just so much less than talking with them in person. And maybe if you have someone who lives far away, and it's nice to call them, it's nice to FaceTime. It is wonderful that we have these resources, but just being in person, face to face, is so much better. So I thought
bask in each other's animal warmth.
Mm-hmm. And so in this story, Vashti's son Kuno asks her to visit him because he says, I have something to tell you and it is very important, so I want to tell you in person. And she doesn't really see why. And
there's somewhat of a, and I don't remember all the nuance, it's been a while since I read it, but there's some nuance that there is no privacy, that the machine is monitoring things, which is one of the reasons why he wants to talk to her in person.
Yes.
So he can't be censored or stopped.
Once Vashti actually does visit him and she finds out that he's
gone off the rails like all teenage boys. Yes,
but speaking of being monitored, he keeps calling her and saying, I want you to visit me. And she's like, just tell me what's going on. And he says, I won't unless you visit me. And at one point she's about to leave her room and then she's almost never leaves her room. So she suddenly feels very ill and she says, I feel sick. Suddenly an arm comes out of the ceiling and takes her temperature and delivers medicine. So it is constantly being monitored and all your needs are being met without you having to really work for them.
Physical needs.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is another really interesting example of our modern world. So many things are so easy to get. Mm-hmm. Which there are definitely advantages to that and some disadvantages to that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The sense of self-sufficiency is almost devoid in some of these emerging generations, because so many of their needs are met by external forces that they no longer have a sense of survival, for lack of a better way of describing it.
One of the things that is talked about a lot in this short story, which I find interesting, they talk a lot about ideas. Like, they'll call their friends and say, have you had any new ideas lately? And often the answer is no. Like, one of the things when Kuno asks Vashti to visit him, she says, I don't want to visit you because, they take planes to get to each other. And she says, I don't get any new ideas on the airships. And he says, that's the only place where I can get new ideas. And he tells her about a constellation, which they don't even use the word constellation. But he said, I saw these stars and I thought they looked like a person. And she's like, who cares? So what?
Right.
And so I thought, a lot of people say we live in the information age. And so I thought it was really interesting that in this short story, ideas are kind of their main currency. But I also thought it was very interesting that they felt like they could only get their ideas from the machine. A lot of people did. And in the age of AI, I feel like that's very relevant because some people don't want to do their thinking themselves. They want to make AI do their thinking for them.
That's right. I've not really dug into AI a lot in my industry. They don't really want us using AI because of the whole Skynet vibe going on with it. But I found AI to be very valuable for evaluating things I've written and giving me feedback on it, which is kind of frightening to me that a machine is doing this. And when researching topics that I need to perform some kind of work on, it's a great way to get summaries of massive documents. It's like, I got to understand this engineering standard. Summarize it for me. Tell me what the highlights are. And AI is very good at that. It's frightening how good it is.
Yes, there are a lot of things that AI is really good at and really helpful for. In my opinion, my biggest fear, AI, of course, is a tool. You can use it for good things or bad things. My biggest fear is that it will lead people to stop thinking for themselves. I mentioned I'm an English major.
It could really kill creativity because when you're trying to solve a problem, that's where creativity for me really kicks in. Especially as an engineer, I've got this problem. I've got this requirement. This thing needs to happen. I had this, my first job out of college. Our program manager had this assistant who managed the program schedule. And she came to me and says, okay, you've got this task to do this and this and this. I said, She says, how long is that going to take you? I said, I have no idea. Well, she says, I need just an estimate. It's like, oh yeah, that's a bear trap. Don't step in that. I just need an estimate so we can project the schedule and cost and stuff like that. I said, look, this has never been done before in the history of humanity, and I'm a brand new engineer. Ask my boss. You'll have a better guess as to how long it'll take than I will. Mm-hmm. But, so creativity comes when you have a problem you have to solve. And if your knee-jerk reaction, now I'll ask someone, I'll be in a hardware store and I'll go find an employee. I said, where are the nails or something stupid like that? What do they do? Aisle 14 maybe? When they need information, they don't stop and think. They just go right to the phone. And so now with AI, as you point out, when someone has a problem, they're just going to ask AI. They're not even going to think about it. They're not going to engage their own creativity and their own knowledge in problem solving.
Yes.
And so the machines might be smarter than us.
It's a really interesting way, because all the time I'll be having a conversation with something and some fact will come up that we're not sure about, and I'll just Google it really quick. Mm-hmm. And
I love that. I'm not disparaging it.
I think it's so interesting, though. I don't know how that affects
guy
society.
In that movie? What was his name? I used to walk around for weeks trying to remember. Now I can just, I know, Joe.
Which it's so nice to be able to instantly receive answers to any question. But then, are we going to lose the ability to know how to work for the hard questions? I don't know.
Or are we going to lose the ability to retain information long term?
But I'm an English teaching major, actually. So I also, one of the things we've talked about a lot is in teaching.
Talked about a lot in school? Mm-hmm. Okay.
How do you, it's very confusing to be getting an education in education. The things I say. But one of the things we have talked about in my classes that are classes of people who are becoming teachers is how do we get students to either not use AI or to use AI appropriately. And it's interesting to see. Some people are just completely against it. They say, I refuse to ever let my students use it. Other people say, I want to have lessons completely focused on AI where we teach students how to use AI.
Well, and the reality is AI will never go away.
Yeah.
It's too shiny a tool. Mm-hmm. It's going to stay around. The question is, how do we morally use the tool?
Yes. And the thing I'm concerned about, I think if I completely ban AI from my classroom, no, I don't. Students are still going to use it for their homework. And even if I do manage to completely ban it in my classroom, they'll still use it other places. So I've been thinking a lot about how can I teach students, yes, AI is a tool, but you can't use it to do your thinking for you. If you can't write a paper without AI, I think that's a problem.
Well, if we're not learning from the cautionary tale of social media and the severe harms that it's caused, especially to developing young adults, if we're not paying attention to that as the context as to how do we address how we use AI in society, especially in childhood development, if we're not looking at social media and say, okay, this is where we goofed up, and this is where it's good, this is where it's bad, if we're not looking at that, we're being really foolish.
The world is progressing so fast that I feel like we can't keep up. Like,
I don't
social
think
media is progressing way faster than the research on social media is progressing.
Right, and I think the human condition, the emotional adaptation, the social adaptation to the changes that technology is introducing into our society, I don't think as a culture we are able to adapt to it fast enough to find ways to address these things morally in society. And it's just become a free-for-all, and it's causing untold damage, not just among bad actors. People are using it for evil purposes, but also just people using it in innocence and not understanding what the long-term effects of being locked in your room and scrolling through YouTube all day long, what that can do to you socially and emotionally and mentally.
That's actually one of the things the story doesn't explore. It's crazy the things that he nails in the head about society today, and a couple of things he just did not get quite right.
Right.
And one of the things is that nobody's mental health is bad. Like, people are way too committed to the machine, and they're not coming up with their own ideas, but they seem generally content with life. And during COVID,
fully adapted.
I was not content.
In the story, people are fully adapted to living in like a 300 square foot apartment 24/7, 365.
It's not even an apartment, it's one room.
That's right, yes. And they're totally adapted to that being their environment and their lifestyle, which I don't think that would really work.
Maybe someday in a lot of years, but I think we saw during COVID that is not good for our mental health.
Humans need to get out and touch grass.
Yes.
Even if they're allergic to it.
So
you tell them a little stuffy.
Yeah. And another thing the story brought up was that, like, people had so many friends, which I think there's some truth to that.
And it was like friend groups in Facebook.
Yeah.
These are my friends. You've never met them ever.
Like, she talked about Vashti. The story focuses on Vashti and her son Kuno. And they haven't seen each other in person. Like, she mentions that she hasn't seen him since he was a baby. In person, which is crazy to me. Because the machine, there's actually, this is something we should get into.
We do need to get to the end of the story. What happens?
Yes. So there is a book on how the machine works, and most of everything they get is from the machine, like all the information and they get. But there is one book that they all have, which is a book of how the machine works. And one of the things the machine says is that the role of a parent is to give birth, and then it's the machine's job to take over. Which is very interesting.
It's very much like Brave New World, which is another one maybe we should discuss.
That would be a good one. I have not read it yet, so I need to catch up.
Dumb ending, but great concepts and ideas in it. But so let's progress to the story. What happens? One of the aspects. Wait, yes.
The book. Sorry, I had one more point about the book.
Sure.
So one of the things Vashti and her son Kuno talk about is he is God, the concept of God. And Vashti says something along the lines of, we have as a society have progressed past God. Like, we don't believe in God. We don't need a God. We're too far progressed for a God. And then later in the story, they begin worshiping the machine. which I don't want to get too denominational here. Like, if you're an atheist, great, good for you. One of the things that I have heard talked a lot about in Christianity, you know, because I'll just say I'm Christian, so I mostly know what Christians say. I'd love to hear other perspectives if you want to give them. But we talk about idol worship. In the Ten Commandments,
Yes,
you're not supposed to
thou
worship.
shalt have no other gods before me.
When I first heard, like, don't worship idols, I'm like, I'm not too worried about worshiping Ra. Like, I don't think that's going to be a problem for me. Pretty easy for me to avoid.
Little brass statue on the newel post of the house.
Yeah. I don't think I need to be worried about worshiping a golden calf. But something I've heard a lot talked about is idol worship can be this. If you're spending all your time focused on your phone and not on God, or even if you're not religious, if you're spending all your time focusing on your phone instead of the things that are really important, or if you are worshiping a celebrity, it's really interesting to see what you worship. And even if you're not religious, what you spend all your time and attention focusing on and what you put your care and your energy into.
That's really how worship is defined. What is it you love? What is it you spend your time with? Is it money or is it your family?
Yeah, and do you worship a celebrity? And it's great to love celebrities and appreciate them, but I think it's very important to consider. I think a lot of the trouble with social media is that people begin to worship it. It can be a great, fun, healthy tool, good way to connect with friends. You can laugh at funny videos.
Yeah, again, it's a tool. It could be used for good or bad, and we need to understand what the moral best way to use it is.
So I think that being careful what you worship, I thought that was one of the things that this author completely nailed. And of course, it's fiction, so it's a little bit exaggerated, like that they literally start worshiping the machine. And I still think the principle of what do we spend our time on, what do we put our energy and our love into is very important to reflect on. Yeah,
and like you said, the story really lets you see where the giant hole is in the lives of these people. But so we got to move on to the end of this story.
Yes, absolutely.
So the machine has all these different components or subsystems, as we'd call them in engineering, you know, water, food, all those kinds of things. And it rearranges your apartment. It puts the bed in when you need the bed and stuff like that. One of its elements is the mending apparatus. And when anything goes wrong in the machine, the mending apparatus is what repairs it. Well, of course, towards the end of the book, the mending apparatus breaks.
Yes.
And so a lot of people say, you know, some people feel that our current state, our human Homo sapiens state, is just one step in the ladder of evolution to artificial intelligence and robots, you know, that we are just a milepost in that progression to a society that is just machines. And I think this example of the mending apparatus breaking is one reason why machines will never dominate the universe, will never take over for humans, can't. They're much, much more, in my opinion, susceptible to extinction. Because as we were just talking about, creativity comes into play when you have a problem to solve. With desperation, with that drive to survive, that instinctual drive to survive. And AI does not have emotion. It does not have the human elements that we so identify with, including that need to survive and the creativity that comes along with that to enable yourself to survive. And I don't think AI or machines will ever be able to fully develop that the way humans do. And so I don't think they'll survive.
Well, humans have free will. And something I think interesting, this is a little bit going back to the worship thing, but humans obviously have free will, but almost all of the humans in this story get so entrenched in just doing what the machine says and following the path that's laid out before them. They still have free will, but they're not exercising their free will. And I think that's another risk that exists today. If you're just spending all of your time doing...
You're a click machine for the big businesses.
Yeah, if you follow the exact path that's laid out for you, or if your algorithm says these are the videos you'll like, and those are the only videos you ever watch, maybe you're never branching out. Maybe you're not exercising your free will as much as you could be, because machines don't have free will. So if you're using a machine to make your choices, then...
One of the things I enjoyed that's really gone that's falling into the past and will vanish is just browsing the shelves in a library. And of course, there's no algorithm there. There's Dewey Decimal System, but that's about it. And you have this random chance of finding something new and interesting that an algorithm could never do for you.
That's a good point. And there are definitely advantages to algorithms saying, hey, if you're interested in this topic, here's a resource that helps you learn more about it.
Especially when you're researching something. I want to learn this. The algorithm can really help you out.
So it's another example of it's a tool, and you can use it for good things or you can use it for bad things.
So what's the big takeaway from The Machine Stops, written in 1909 by E.M. Forster? And that, just real quick, The Machine Stops is in the public domain because it's so old. So just type in The Machine Stops, E.M. Forster, and give it a read. It's a short story, not a novel, and it's free.
Yeah, you can get a free PDF. There is a small detail in The Machine Stops that I think is a great example of the bigger takeaway I have. One of the things they mention is that the machine is constantly humming, and people are born in the machine, so they always have these humming.
That's right.
It's always there. It's always a part of their life. And then, spoiler alert, but not really, because the title is The Machine Breaks. So, when the machine breaks, there's a sudden silence that nobody has ever heard before. And the story even says some people die instantly because of the shock of this sudden silence.
That's right. Can I throw in something? So I was born with no hearing at all in my left ear. And you know how they talk about you grab a seashell, you listen to it, and you hear the ocean? You don't hear the ocean. It's just the sound of the air circulating in there that makes kind of a sound, right? So when my skull stopped growing, they went into my ear surgically and found that some of the bones in my middle ear were missing, just a deformity from birth, and they replaced them with a wire, and I got about half my hearing back. And when they took that, after it healed up, and they removed the cotton from my ear canal, constant noise, because it was just like the seashell. It created this channel which would create sound, and we are always hearing that, and our brain filters it out. So it was just like The Machine Stops. There was always that sound there, but they didn't know it was there until it stopped.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yes.
The brain is spooky powerful.
So the reason I brought that up is, I have also noticed this. Like right now, that computer's humming. You hear air conditioning humming. You hear your fridge humming. The dishwasher's going.
And the cat's rumbling.
Yeah. But then,
yes, you are.
Then we go out camping somewhere, and it's just
it's so beautiful.
Silent. I love going camping in deserts, by the way, because there's not like 20 cicadas going. But
yeah, Virginia is not as much fun to camp in as the Rocky Mountains.
But
beautiful, but different.
This smaller example of the constant hum of the machine illustrates my larger point that we become so used to all the technology around us. It's always part of our lives. We're always using it, always relying on it, that we don't even think about it anymore. So what I would like to invite listeners to do is to think about it. I'm not saying you need to stop using technology. It's great. It can do a lot of good things. But notice that you're using it. Notice that hum. Notice all the ways that technology is impacting your life so that you can make the choices for when you want silence.
Well, if you can't set it down and walk away for a few days, you're addicted.
Yes. So were there any final thoughts you had?
No, I think it was a fantastic short story, incredibly prescient, as I mentioned, written more than 100 years ago. And oh my gosh, reading that story and then COVID, it just, yeah. Again, another fantastic, fun story in science fiction that asks the big what if and what does technology do to society, hypothetically. And it's a fun read.
So, talk to your friends in person, touch grass, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.